Day and Temple Pona. Welcome to the stream, and today I'm doing, once again, I'm going to be telling a few stories. Now, I'm going to be honest, I couldn't really come up with a theme for the folktales for this month. I was thinking, well, I could do love stories. That seems interesting, but I'm going to be honest, I couldn't find many connecting themes for those stories. That's probably just because I'm not hugely familiar. I am new to this sort of presenting, and I'm not really interested in that sort of stuff, personally. So long I have looked into lots of folktales and such, one is focusing on love, not so much so. Instead, I decided that I would attempt to talk about birds, because, I mean, lovebirds are a thing. It's as close as I'm gonna get to having a theme that fits a month, if I'm going to be honest, so that's what I've gone for. As for the stories for today, I'm not really. Again, I'm unfamiliar with a lot of these stories. I fear I may have burnt too bright for my first folktale stream, and so these lot I'm not sure will be as interesting. I'm a lot less familiar with these, but hopefully they'll have your curiosity at least. And with that, I think I'll begin with the Raven and the Loon. Now, this one, let's begin, let's begin in eastern Siberia. And here, we find the Loon and the Raven. Now, once the Loon was as black as the Raven, pitch black, dark feathers. Yet, when the Loon looked around, they saw birds of all manner of colours, decorating themselves with beautiful patterns. So, they decided to do something. The Raven the Raven and the Loon attempted to decorate themselves. The Raven first, and the Loon went into the water and dived. And the Raven, not so happy with that, hit her sacrum with his beak and cut it in half, and so the Raven remained black, while the Gagara was colourful but with a twisted leg. So here we have a story about the Raven and the Loon, where due to the Loon being a loon, ended up causing the Raven to become black instead of colourful like all the other birds. Now, in academic circles, this story is known, obviously it's the Raven and the Loon, but it has a similar theme to a bunch of other stories, that theme being two birds painting each other. And while the Raven was the victim in this scenario, not long. Let's go for another one, shall we? This story is from Burma. It's similar, but let's actually tell the story. So, this is the Raven and the peacock. Now, so the birds are painting each other, and seems real fun to do. So the peacock invites the raven over. Let us paint each other. And so the raven, seeing this as an opportunity to flex their painting abilities, just goes ham. Paints a beautiful, bright and colourful patterns, and ostentatious and just glorious, and it's a peacock. I'm sure you know how beautiful and splendid and maybe a little bit gaudy, depends on your taste, they are. And so, now it's the peacock's turn to paint the raven, and so they're about to begin, but the raven looks outside and, oh, what's this? It seems that there are hawks flying overhead, and so rushes outside, and, well, not quite rushes outside, is antsy, and hurries up the peacock, and so the peacock has only the time to throw a bucket of black paint over his face, and that's that. And that's why the peacock is so beautiful, and the raven is pitch black. And there's a bunch of variants in Burma. You got ones where the raven sees people carving up a buffalo and throwing the offal into the stream. There's ones where he hears a pig screeching and decides, sounds like they're slaughtering a pig, dives into the black paint and flies off, and a bunch of that. But here we see it's the raven being impatient and distracted that causes them to be painted pitch black. And if we go to, say, I don't know, China, here the raven colours the swan. Similar story, but this time, rather than the raven being painted black due to hurry or due to being washed off with water, the swan looks at raven and is not very pleasant, and out of spite colours them all black. And so you have a bunch of them. It's usually a corvid and, being pure black, and another bird that's colourful. You got them in Korea, Indonesia, the Philippines, Siberia, all over the place. So that is the story of the that is the motif, the story of two birds paint each other. Quite an interesting tale, and it is interesting how widespread it is, and I suppose it's not too surprising, but I know what I'm supposed to take from that. I know what you're supposed to take from it. So let's just move on to the next story. This one is Swans and Crows. So, this one is a marriage story, but I wouldn't go so far as to call it a love story. And with that preamble, let's begin. So, this one's another myth from, another folktale from Burma. So, the king of swans is doing fancy political marriage, and agrees to marry his daughter to the son of a crow. Yellow Swan, she's absolutely against this. She does not want this. And Black Swan, they think, sure, great, they're probably a soldier, so flies over to her husband's parents and look down and see Raven eating carrion, and she's like, absolutely not, I am not eating that, thank you very much, leaves in disgust. And that's the end of that marriage, very short lived, and that's why I wouldn't call this a love story, but I suppose I'm not doing this on Valentine's Day, so I suppose it's all good. But, similarly, just as the previous myth was around Asia, but also, northeastern, also along Siberia and that large area. This myth is also in a large area, and there's a Nenetri variant. Now, the Nenets are some people that I have taken a little bit of interest. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in the culture, I'd barely say I'm a beginner in their culture, but that whole thing is very interesting to me. They've got a very interesting language, and it's a herding culture that exists today. It's very. I encourage you to look for yourself. I just find a lot of their stuff interesting, and I could go on about their religion now, but instead I'm gonna keep focus and talk about their version of swans and crows. So, in springtime, the swan flew and flies to marry Raven. In the fall, Raven tries to get Swan to stay, and the crows treat the swan, but they fall, and the swan couldn't eat it. He hits his feet on a cauldron, and flies away. The fall dirties everything, his beaks and his legs, and that's why the Raven is so sooty and black. But the swan is sooty and black, but only on its beak and on its legs. They're black, as you can tell, just like the Ravens. There's another version, which was very similar, where an orphan meets a swan and brings him to the land of swans, and the guy becomes a swan himself. Now this guy, he sees a wonderful crow girl, beautiful, but he sees this crow girl's mother cooking something up. It's crap, it's shit, it's poop, excrement, gross. And the swan's like, absolutely not, I am not. And slips, second verse, same as the first, gets his beaks and legs dirty, and that's why the swan's beaks and legs are dirty. Now you can see similar themes as the first type of myth I went through, that being, it's a myth of how the swan got their colours. It's a myth involving two birds, one bright white or colourful and the other black. But it's different, obviously the idea that it's just distinctly not so much about painting, it's somewhat accidental, even if it is about colouring how they got coloured. They're in the same area, so there's a chance they influenced each other. You can ask me which influenced which, or if it's just a coincidence. It might be, even if it is two birds changing how to their looks. Could just be a coincidence, or it could be how this mist travelled through the area and changed a bit. But you can ask me. I wouldn't know. And so, come to the third myth. This is the cuckoo looks for her brother. So, the basic idea is that. Well, let me tell you the story proper. This myth, again, similar area often, but also has versions in the Amazon and in the Balkans and Central Europe. But it basically goes like this. So, one day, a brother and sister are living. This is the Bulgarian version. So, a brother and sister are living together. The sister is lazy as, and one day the brother has had enough, and so he's like, "Come on, sis, get up. You have got to do some work, otherwise nothing's gonna get done round here." But the sister, she scolds him back like, "Look at you nagging all the time." And so he just leaves. He's like, "Fair enough, if you don't want me around, I'll leave." And she's like, "Oh, I've made a mistake." And so she cries like, "God, could you give me wings and help me find him?" So God's like, "Sure thing." Turns him into a cuckoo. And so during the day she looks for him and calls out for her brother. But she can't find him, can't see him, can't hear him. But at night he answers from the forest, and she can hear him, but she can't find him. And so that's more or less the gist of the story. There's not sometimes there's a lot of variants, but ultimately it's a sister and a brother, and for whatever reason the brother leaves and the sister becomes a cuckoo and looks for him. There's a version in Macaulay, I might have butchered that, where the brother and sister are abandoned in a forest. They climb up a tree, but the brother leaves and doesn't realise the sister isn't an adept climber, gets left behind. She becomes a cockapoo and calls for him at night, and has since then been calling. In another version, the brother is the one that gets turned into a bird and calls for a sister. But it's all the same general become bird, search for sibling. Usually become sister, becomes the bird and brother, but there's some variations. And lots of them have different specifics, like sometimes it's a cockapoo, a cuckoo, a bean bird, you know, whatever is relevant, what is known to be around in that area. So that's the cuckoo looks for her brother. It's a third tail. I'm gonna be honest, completely honest. I struggled to find any of these sort of stories. I'm not the theme is obviously a lot weaker, and none of these stories I'm familiar with, whereas Moon Rabbit stories, I've researched them before, so I know a fair amount of them anyway. These, absolutely no idea. All of them interesting, just I can't really tell you much about them, about how they were built, or the cultural nuances. I just know they're neat myths, neat stories, neat folktales rather. So I don't really have much more to say about them. So, as such, I'd love to stay around, but I don't really have any much more to say, and I'd just be waffling on about nothing, since these are all out of my ballpark. But I hope you enjoyed my telling of these stories, and next month, what was I going to do next month? I can't remember. Well, I'll do something next month. Not sure what sort of stories, but I promise you I will. And as for next week, I'll be continuing translating Ben Bo's Golden Age, and hopefully I'll have figured out enough about my project to start doing backgrounds. But for now, that's all from me. Have a good one. Mitara, and I'll see you next week. Have a good one.